Hi, this is Doug, and this is a video blog entry. The title of this is A Pyware Transcription Project, Transcribing Iconic DCI Drill Moves, Part 2. How? Part 1 dealt with why. I tried to explain why I wanted to take on this project, 8-part project actually. And I thought that rather than trying to describe through text how I went about doing this, I would just put together a quick video. So we'll talk through a couple of different examples and the process, and hopefully that'll answer some people's questions. Okay. If you're not familiar with Screencast-O-Matic or some other screen cap video software, that's what I'm using right now. So I can capture my screen, and then I also have the option of adding a picture-in-picture with the webcam. So that's why you get to see me while I'm talking. I have the first part of my project pulled up. I decided to do the 1983 Cadets Z pull. So this is video from finals, or I think it's finals or semifinals, 1983. George Zangali was the original designer. The music is Rocky Point Holiday by Ron Nelson. And so the first step is, deciding what was iconic. And I kind of covered that a little bit in part 1. But this was definitely something that when I saw it in 1983 had a lot of influence on me, inspired me in ways, blew my mind in ways because it was so different from anything else that was out there at that point. And really, I think solidified George Zangali as, probably a person on the visual design Mount Rushmore. So the first thing that I had to do was I found the YouTube video and I captured it using Screencast-O-Matic. So I apologize to anyone who is copyright, copyright aware or concerned. And then took that and put it into iMovie. So it captured as an MP4. I drop it into iMovie, and that's what you're seeing on my screen right now is the full screen view in iMovie. And the reason I did that is I can take and stop it and start it much easier than on YouTube. One of the challenges with this particular video is it's 1983. So this was, likely recorded on some VHS tape at some point and then turned into digital format and then put on YouTube. So it's a little grainy, a little cloudy at times, especially in full screen view. So that's really the first couple of steps. And then that, like I said, that way it gives me the option of moving the video slowly. I can decide that I'm going to freeze it in a particular spot. For some of the video examples, I actually used slow-mo in iMovie to slow it down even more, particularly with some cadets and one of the Santa Clara examples I did. So anyway, this was the set that I decided to start with. And then you can see that as I'm watching the video, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues are the same way, you're watching the drill and you're going, wow, how is that phrased? Okay. So we're watching the performers, and when they change direction, chances are that means that's a set. That's a picture, a static picture that they're taught, a coordinate to go to, and then they're going to the next coordinate. So here would be the first page, and then the second page is actually right here, okay? When we set up this curvilinear, this line, and then this curvilinear. And actually, I think I stopped a little early. It's more like there, okay? So that would be page 2. So however many counts, I think it's 12. In a moment, when we switch over to the Pyware software, we'll be able to look at that specifically. So I'm watching the video and deciding where the sets are going to be. One of the reasons I chose the 1983 Cadets is because it's larger chunks. It's larger set counts, more counts between pictures. Some of the other examples I did, particularly Cavaliers, Santa Clara, they were sometimes 4 counts between pictures or 6. And so that becomes very dense. It becomes very labor intensive and really kind of stressful as you're working your way through it. So I thought I would start with this one. It's one I'm really familiar with. larger chunks makes it a little easier to handle. Okay, so this would be one set, and then I watched and I thought, okay, here's the next set. So that diag, or that line in the middle, becomes a vertical line on the 50. Ooh, all right. So then you'll see when we get to Pyware, I'm charting these people as one chunk. I'm charting this as one chunk. These people as another chunk. Obviously, the drum line is its own entity, and then the color guard. All right. So then from there, it's just one more picture. It's getting to this one. All right. And that's the last set. And again, you're actually combining. So whereas in this set, I charted the winds in 3 different pictures. When we look at Pyware, we'll see that. This last form is one big curvilinear. Okay. So I was able to draw all this at one time, all this at one time, this at one time. So that's how I used iMovie to dissect the drill. So let's watch the whole move from beginning to end in its original form. So here's that first move, right? Tempo change. 11, 12. There's 16. Now, I think the last one was 28 or 32. All right, so there's the original. Now let's switch over to Pyware. So here we are in the Pyware software, and this is the software that most visual designers are using in the activity, either with marching bands or drum and bugle corps, indoor activity, whatever it may be. And you can see that I have charted that first set. So you can see the arc that the cadets were in with the majority of the brass, and then the contras up here in the front, color guard, and percussion. And I'll just go right ahead and say this, that since I'm working from video and not actual charts, things are approximate, all right? So I'm trying to, this is my best guess as to where people were on the field all the way through the process. And so then here you can see the different pages or the sets. We talked about earlier, there's that 12 count move. So page 2 is after 12 counts, and then there's a 16. So then we're at 28. And then we are at 52. So that last move is 24 counts. So as I click through here, we can see the different sets. These dots are showing where they were previously. Okay. And then I had to figure out which parts of the arc went where. So you can see that arc does pull apart and then form the next picture. Right. And then we have the third set, and we had talked about the vertical line happening and all that. So the way this was charted is actually charted, I believe I did it in 5 parts. I think this was a line, this was a line, this was a line, here's a line, and there is a line. All right. This set was drawn in 3 parts, an arc here, straight line, arc here. So then we get to, let's watch this slowly so you can watch. That's what makes this move so cool, is that rotation in the middle that pushes the different side elements, whatever you want to call them, around and out. Sets up that motion, okay? And then the fourth set, the final set, this is one big long curvilinear. So that was all drawn at one time. Color guard, it's all drawn at one time. The percussion, I'm pretty sure, was 2 different parts. I think it was Well, although that kind of looks like it might be one. It might be one curvilinear with the different spacings. Snares are closer together than the cymbals or the tenors or the bass drums. All right. And then in Pyware, you can sync the audio file with your design, so we can watch it animate and hear the music along with it. So that was another portion of the process, was creating the audio file to use with the sync. So here is the whole thing in Pyware. Now, the one thing about drill design at that point, 1983, I think Pyware had just started. I'm quite certain this show was not designed, this particular show, 83 Cadets, was not designed using Pyware. So it's very kind of organic in the way it moves. And Pyware is kind of limited. Pyware, the default is that it's going to animate straight lines. So when you go from one form to another, all those different little coordinates or different little icons are moving in a straight pathway unless you tell them to move in a curve. So you can see where we get here, the spacing, that's actually pretty good through here. But especially as we move to the last set, when you watch that center line, that vertical, you can tell that it's not the same space as these people. So that would have been something that the cadets would have taken into account as they're performing it on the field and altered their pathways, their individual pathways, to make that a smoother transition. So that, in a nutshell, is how I captured or attempted to capture in a transcription the 83 Cadets Z-pull. Next, we're going to look at 1991 Star of Indiana. So here is Star of Indiana, full screen, and this is the section that I chose to transcribe. I call it the Transfigured Cross. So a lot of people are familiar with this particular show. There's Roman Images show from 1991. And here I'll just let it run one time. We watch the whole. Okay, really about the only word I can come up with to describe that whole sequence is glorious. It's just amazing. And when people saw it for the first time in 1991, it really blew their minds. Okay, and so it's just, I don't know what else to say about George Zangala's creation there. It's very organic. I've heard stories that he ran around the field telling people where he wanted them to be staged. I'm going to adjust this window just a little bit. Okay. So kind of the same process we'll go through again is figuring out, where the sets are. So there's a pass through with the color guard and winds, or the brass. And then we start a new set. When I take this block over here, starts separating, okay, segmenting, starts segmenting. And then the color guard moved from a block into this next form. And I actually had to put a subset for the color guard about right there, and then have them move on out into that set. And you can see the brass and percussion arrive here, and then we move to something new right there. Okay, so it keyed me, you know, I'm watching things like vertical lines lock in, diags lock in, and that tells me that that's the end of a phrase, and then we move a new direction, okay, like we discussed before. And then we have this set. There, it's a 16 and then an 8, I believe it is, right here. And then lock into the cross. Then it rotates. And we have a short stand fast and a tempo change. And then it's a series of 8 count moves. So we break out of it. There's 8 about right. It's actually in here, I think is where I decided. Yeah, where this performer hits the 50-yard line. Okay. Then we have another 8 right here. We have a vertical. This line closes down horizontally. There's a mesh that's happening here, but someone's not quite in their dot. And then the circle closes. So those were things that I was watching for to key. Okay, here's another 8 to right there. Then another 8 to here. Again, I'm watching the verticals and the diags resolve. And then another 8 to here. And then 8 to the final cross. Okay, so that's how I came up with the phrasing by using the video. Again, it's approximate. So it happens so fast that using iMovie and slowing things down was very, very helpful. Okay, so now we're going to transition over and check out the Pyware file. Here we are in the Pyware file for the 1991 Star of Indiana. So you can see the starting position with the color guard and the brass line and then percussion up here. And it's a 12 count pass through. All right, and then we had this 20 count move to this form. And this is where I used a subset right there for the color guard so I can make this flow work. Now these two people are still kind of problematic. They're really close to the drum line as they move over. Again, Pyware is, unless I tell it otherwise, it is animating in a straight line. And so then we hit this set, and then we have a 16 to here. And then there's a 16 right here. No, that's not right. It's an 8. There's an 8 to here. And then a 16 gets us there. We have the 8 count rotation. Color guard stands fast. And then we have a stand fast in the winds and the color guard. And then we start that series of 8. So here's the first 8. All right. Here's the next 8. So these are all separate sets. Next 8. Next 8. Next 8. Now we're almost home. And then the cross reappears. So when I'm charting things like this, I'm drawing each of these separate lines, okay? So these are different groups of instruments, selecting them, drawing them in a line. Again, an approximate location based on the video. So here is the Pyware file in animation. So then the next step, once I have everything in Pyware the way I want it to be, then I use Screencast-O-Matic to get that screen cap of the animation. So now I have an MP4 of not only the original performance, but then an MP4 of the Pyware animation. So then we move to iMovie to make the finished product. So here we are back in iMovie, and I've decided to choose a different episode of my transcription project. This is episode number 5, actually. This is Santa Clara Vanguard from 2016. And this is the effect that I call the sequence that I called the Sparks. So it's from their innovation show or invention show. And without destroying into too much of an iMovie tutorial, this is how I did this. In iMovie, you have all these backgrounds. So I selected a black background for my first right here, my opening, so that the movie can kind of start and then fade in. Then I have my opening slides introducing what it is, use a transition to blur in. And then I have my, right here, it's going to make noise, I apologize, but I have my clip from the original, and then I stack on top of that the clip of the Pyware animation, all right? And so up here, if I highlight that, you have a menu for picture-in-picture, or how you're going to, it can be picture-in-picture, but how you're going to use that particular clip that you dragged over top of the other, all right? And so I chose picture-in-picture. I can decide where it's going to be on the screen, how big it's going to be, and then I have to take and sync that Pyware file or animation up with the original, okay, so that it animates and you get to see the Pyware animation along with the original performance. So that's how I'm able to create the finished product video that I put online. I chose the clips, or I chose the sequences that I transcribed, the length of them, based on time. I mean, obviously, it's based on the actual move and whether I felt like it was iconic and important. But if I backed up before the actual move and included some lead up to it, I selected that so that it was as close to a minute or under a minute as possible, so that I could then, when I finish the movie, I can actually put it on social media like Twitter. That platform limits the length of video that you can put on without having it linked to a YouTube video. And then it works on other platforms equally well, Facebook or LinkedIn, anything like that. So that is the entire process for putting one of the episodes together. The time spent in Pyware and watching the original in iMovie far outweighs all the production stuff that happens in iMovie at the end. So anyway, I hope that this answered any of your questions about how this was done. And I'd like for everybody to tune in, check things out that I'm doing from time to time. Stay safe. Like I say, I may do another one of these next year. Thanks.